What's up, everybody? Michael Terrell here, founder of Fourscore Solutions. So today, I want to show you something that I think is genuinely going to change how Smartsheet admins, consultants, and power users operate day to day. I've been using Anthropic's Claude AI connected directly to Smartsheet through what's called an MCP connector. And what that means in plain English is I can talk to Claude in a normal conversation, and it can actually read, write, and modify my live Smartsheet data. No exports, no copy-paste, no middleware. So think about that for a second. You're in a conversation, you ask a question about a project, Claude pulls the data. You want to add a column with a formula? Done. Update rows? Done. Search across your workspace? Also done. So I'm going to walk through a real example, an actual project that we worked on this week, and I'll show you how we went from a simple status check to building out calculated columns with pacing formulas in about 5 minutes flat. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so we're looking at Claude AI, and really we're going to go through and just ask a simple prompt to just pull the recent project status of a given project. I'm going to include the direct sheet link for this example. Again, you don't have to. It is a bit hit or miss in full transparency. So in the interest of time, we're going to include the direct link, but we have had success where you don't have to. And I'm also going to use Wispr Flow for a dictation, just so you don't have to struggle watching me type out prompts here. So can we pull the most recent project status for our New Era Technology project within Smartsheet? And then, like I said, I'm going to include the link. You can see I'm saying within Smartsheet. Again, if I'm including the link, you don't have to. But if I wasn't going to include the link saying within Smartsheet, we'll allow Claude to just say, oh yeah, hey, we're already connected within Smartsheet. Let's go pull that data from Smartsheet. So you can see it's going to say, let me pull up that sheet for you. And you can see it's running the request of get sheet summary. And so it's going to run and pull that Smartsheet data from our project intake list where this project lives. So we'll let it run. Typically it's pretty quick. Of course, when we start recording a video, we're now getting the taking longer than usual prompt. But it is fairly quick, I would say, just in terms of pulling your information. Again, especially if you have access to a lot of sheets, this will come up quite a bit. But if you're only looking at, a few things in your workspace, it tends to run a bit quicker, is what we've seen. So we'll let this run. And there we go. So it's pulled the latest New Era Technology project. It's got the name, it's got all the details of the project itself, the objective, next steps, key risk. We can see it's pretty early on. And, based on this information, maybe a piece of data that I'd like to see that's not included currently is we have % complete, but maybe I'd like to look at, well, how does this compare to the timeline that's elapsed? So if we have February 10th to July 31st, I know we're only, 11 days or so past the initial start date. But from a comparison standpoint, I'd like to know how is the work that we're completing comparing against time and how we're working towards it so that I can compare against like hours burned as well. So I can simply ask something like, hey, I think we should add a % of timeline elapsed to this project, comparing the actual time so I can compare it against percentage of completion. Can we go ahead and add that to the sheet? Now again, not the best prompt in the world. Did that on purpose so that Claude kind of thinks through like, all right, like I think I'm getting enough context of what they want. And so it kind of does one of two things. It'll take the request, and if there's enough context, it can kind of give you the result you're looking for. Just like, hey, just want to confirm that this is what we're thinking. It'll give you advice, whether that's a good call, or it might, push back on that logic and say, well, maybe we don't want timeline elapsed. Maybe we want to look at another route. So we can see here right away it's saying, hey, that's a good call. Comparing % complete against percentage of time elapsed is a quick way to spot projects drifting off pace. So it's going to grab the column details first, then add a new column. So basically it's going to check, hey, we think it's a good idea. Let's make sure that of all the columns that exist in the sheet today, that doesn't exist. So, I made the statement that, hey, I think we should add this, but it just might be that that data already exists and it didn't pull it in the initial report because it's giving me a high-level summary, and maybe something like percentage of timeline elapsed is a bit more detailed and nuanced. So now it's going to go, it'll grab the columns, making sure that that doesn't exist. And of course, when we've tested this earlier, this whole process really takes about 5 to 10 minutes to run. If you're going back and forth, tweaking it here and there, it can obviously take a bit longer. But here we go. So done. So it looks like we're already ahead of ourselves. Looks like this timeline elapsed column already exists, and it's in this position already. And it's calculating the percentage, and we can see the dates here. So that data point, already pre-built. Now, maybe I wanted to ask another question of like, okay, well, I'm glad to see the data exists. It's kind of giving me the result for the project that I've originally prompted it to. But maybe I want to ask something like, hey, can I get an indicator of some kind that alerts me so I don't have to look at the numbers and compare? Are we ahead of schedule, behind schedule? So maybe I ask something like, it doesn't make sense to add a pacing column that kind of compares and contrasts the two just to kind of give me an indication of where these projects are at. Let's go ahead and add that also. And so same thing, it's going to go through, look at the data and saying, hey, single pacing indicator, that sounds great. So it's going to add a schedule pacing column right after the percent of timeline elapsed with a formula that compares the two. And done. You can see it's pretty quick. Added the column. It's given me indication green, amber, red. And then it's given me a plus minus within 5-point threshold to see if it's on pace. And so if I want to adjust the tolerance band or add a numeric delta alongside it, again, I can have it answer those questions as well. So we'll jump ahead to the sheet over here, and we'll refresh our project intake sheet. And if I go to the right, we can see there's that timeline elapsed column and scheduled pacing. Now we can see it gave me the percentage, but I can just quickly come in here and say, hey, you know what, I want to format this as a percentage. And now I can see that indication across the board. And so if I come back here really quick, let me go in and say, let's say percent complete. So we see this is just a text field here. So just so we can see this stuff update dynamically, let me go back here and say, hey, I just received word from the team that the new air technology project is actually about 15% complete currently. Can we go ahead and update that for me? And so just having a conversation, getting the prompt in, and now we're going to have it go in and actually provide the update itself. So hopefully you can see here kind of the power of Claude, connecting it with Smartsheet. Again, looking for updates, you can kind of just chat back and forth, get the information that you need. And then if you actually need to make technical updates within Smartsheet, Claude has the ability to do so. As we can see earlier, it's not perfect. Like timeline percentage came in, it did make it a percentage, but the formatting wasn't a percentage. But like schedule pacing with a symbol and text next to it as a text number, that's pretty powerful. If I wanted to update the property type to just be a symbol, I could go ahead and talk to Claude and say, hey, let's update this formula and update the column property via symbol and convert it to something like we have over on the status side. But really quick, really easy. I don't need to know formulas. I don't need to worry about writing it and making sure I got the logic right and testing all that. We can just leverage AI to do it for us. And it's pretty accurate. Obviously, you always want to double check your work because it does get some things wrong or some things not quite as right if it's inferring something that doesn't make sense for your business. So you always want to double check. So you can see here, it says it's updated the new error at 15%, and that updated their pacing to ahead. So let's go back to the project here. We can still see it has the original data here, but I'm going to go ahead and do a refresh of this page. So I'm going to do it save first. And then as we go, there we go. Projects listed ahead. So overall, I hope you all can see how powerful this is. I'm having a ton of blast messing with this. We're starting to launch this with a lot of clients that are looking for, hey, how can we leverage AI in our practice, especially for those using Smartsheet. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and we'll see you in the next demo. So here's why I think this matters, especially if you're running Smartsheet and using it to manage portfolio projects. The bottleneck has never really been, can Smartsheet do this? It almost always can. The bottleneck is the time it takes to think through the logic, the build formula, apply it across all your rows, then QA the result, and that's really the work that kind of eats at your day. So what this connector does is it collapses that entire cycle into a conversation. You describe what you want, Claude understands the structure, writes the formula, applies it, and validates the output. And if something's off, well, you just talk about it. Now, to be honest and transparent, this is still very early. There are some very rough edges here. The search API threw some errors during our initial session, and not everything is production bulletproof yet. But the trajectory here is clear, and I think teams that start building muscle memory now with this are going to have a serious advantage. If you're a Smartsheet consultant, admin, or just someone who lives in Sheets all day, I'd love to hear what use cases you'd want to see. Drop a comment below. We might use it for a future video, walking through that exact use case. And if your organization needs help getting more out of Smartsheet, whether it's building solutions, cleaning up governance, or figuring out how AI fits into your workflow, that's exactly what we do at Fourscore Solutions. Our links will be in the description below, and I really appreciate you watching, and we'll see you all in the next one. Thanks, everyone.